Hello, Internet. Hi, it's March the 10th, and I'm back to give you guys a bit of an update. I was kind of shocked. I looked online just a few minutes ago, and I saw that it has been 9 days and a couple of hours, or maybe even almost 10 days, something like that, since I posted the last video. So I realized that maybe it's time to post. I guess the reason why I hadn't really been in the posting mode is just because there's not a whole lot of new stuff to report right now. I'm kind of just in the doldrums of cycles of treatment. I finished my 4th cycle last week of my, as most of you know, panitumumab and the fluorouracil pump, affectionately known as 5FU. So it's been almost a week since my treatment, and I'm just dealing with the stuff that I always deal with. Just today, I had conversations with family. And friends too, but today, particularly different family members asking me how I'm doing. And, it's kind of frustrating because people ask how I'm doing because they care and they want to know, but yet I don't want to complain. I don't want to whine. I hate that. But at the same time, I also don't want to be fake. I don't want to say, oh, I'm doing just great. So there's always this dance or this balance, whatever, when people ask, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Between telling like the genuine truth of how I'm doing and how I'm feeling versus trying to be positive and upbeat, just because I get tired of saying I don't feel good, but I don't. And that's just kind of how it is when you're on chemotherapy. How many people who are on cancer treatment can say, oh, I feel great? Sometimes there are days, there are moments, hours where you feel pretty good. And I would have to say, I know people that continue to exercise and push through and work a full schedule during chemotherapy. But I also know that those same people crash afterwards and they feel awful and they feel super tired and fatigued when they exert themselves. So for me, 3 years and 3 months into this and being in the 4th round of treatments, there's cycles, each individual cycle, but then there's a round of treatment, which might consist of 5 or 6 or 8 or 12 cycles. As you guys know, I've never gone that far. The longest periods of treatment that I've had have been 6 cycles. And I'm at number 4 this time around, which started back on January the 7th. Anyway, the point being, I've gotten used to this, and I have tried to figure out a way to continue to engage, push through. Everybody has a different way of dealing with this stuff, but for me, I have to get up. I still get up every morning at 6 o'clock. Even the time change a few days ago, I was up at 5:30 because my body thought it was 6:30. So one of my ways of coping is to try as hard as I can to stick with a routine. That means even if I'm not feeling well, even if I didn't sleep well, even if I'm tired or I just hurt, my skin hurts, I get out of bed and I make my coffee and I sit down with my laptop and I do my obsessive, neurotic journaling, which I've done for basically all of my adult life. It's just the way I start my day. Coffee, low light, and my laptop where I look over my to-do list and weather maps and stuff like that. And then I jump into about a half an hour, more or less, of journaling. That's the way I start my day. And it's important for me. I really am a believer in routine. I think that a lot of times we get shipwrecked in life because we stray from our routine and we drop positive habits in our lives, whether it's a meal schedule or a sleep schedule or a spiritual discipline, whether you journal or you pray or you read the Bible or some other, inspirational literature. I really think that's important. For me, it is. Like I said, no matter how bad I feel, I can hardly, maybe right after some big surgeries that I had a couple years ago, there were days when I couldn't get going. But with a stoma bag, and for almost a year, I lived with a urinary catheter, for God's sake. Meds, creams, lotions, feeling super tired. Anyway, you get my point. I try to push through because I just feel like that my life, my mental, physical, spiritual, emotional life is much more healthy if I decide to push through. I always wash up, clean up, whether it's a shower or just, washing my face and dunking my head, whatever. And I get dressed every single morning. I think I mentioned before, a lot of times I'm exhausted by 8:30 a.m. because of the routines that I go through in the morning, because I just want to be ready for the day. And I get dressed and I get up at 6 o'clock, but sometimes by 8:30 I'm tired because I've gone through my whole routine and I'm dressed and I'm ready. And I guess I'd rather do that, even if I sit back down on the couch and even if I'm on my phone or my laptop, or, I have, you guys, a lot of you know, I do online teaching several hours a week with students, adult students all over the world. There are weeks when I have to bow out or close my calendar or, postpone or cancel, but most of the time I try to push through that stuff. And I find that it makes me feel better. Just today, the last 2 days actually, I haven't felt well, but I had one student yesterday afternoon and I had one this morning. And when I get done with that hour and I log off, I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't cancel that. It just, you guys know what I'm talking about. The adrenaline pumps and you engage and you connect and you feel like you are living life instead of just sort of getting under the covers and, getting in the fetal position. I try as hard as I can not to do that, even on the worst of days. So, yeah. Don't know what else to share with you today. I had a comment from somebody. I've mentioned that I've been getting more views on my videos that are outside of my, personal circles of friendships. And somebody posted and said, you know what, every time you do a video, you should give us a recap of your story, your background, your diagnosis, and what your treatment. And I wrote him back. I felt kind of bad, but I was like, there's been so much that has happened since November of 2022 when I first got my diagnosis. I can't imagine going through that whole thing every single time I do a video. But at the same time, I appreciate his input because I realize, because I follow other people on YouTube, and sometimes you have to dig back through videos to get the context of what's going on. Okay, when were they diagnosed? What was their diagnosis? What was their first treatment? What did they have surgical intervention? So I'm going to work on that. If you're watching right now, the gentleman who made that comment, I'm going to try to work on that, and maybe in the future when I'm doing videos, I can maybe just try to do a 1 or 2 minute thing at the beginning, which does go boom, 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 and let newcomers to the channel know at least a thumbnail sketch and an overview of my story. But at least for today, I'm going to stop right here. This is almost 10 minutes, and like I said, I don't have much new news. I will be having my 5th cycle of treatment next week. But I wanted to make that point about engagement. Others of you who are going through cancer, chemo, any kind of treatment, or even recovering from surgeries and other chronic issues and health conditions. I guess the moral of the story today is make efforts to engage with life. Exercise, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Don't stop. Try to do the little things that keep you engaged with life. For me, it works wonders. It really does. It just, I don't feel great. I just told my mom a couple hours ago, I said, I feel like on my best days during treatment, I'm like at about 70%. And on my worst days, I might be at 20 or 30%. So there you go. Uh, but engaging, keeping the lines of communication open, uh, following a routine. I didn't mention bedtime, but that's another one. I try to go to bed at a certain time. I know how long it takes me to get lotioned up and moisturized up and take my meds and all that stuff. But I try to get to bed about the same time every night. I may not sleep that well, but not every night. In fact, I struggle with sleep. That's a topic that we could address at some point. But still, I try to keep with that routine. Roughly 6 a.m. up, roughly 9:30 or 10 p.m. trying to be falling asleep. That's kind of what I try to do. So, okay, I can start to tell when I'm just going blah, blah, blah. So that's enough for now. And again, thank you and love to all of you. And I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.